Hi everybody, this is another episode of Tax Leaders Unplugged. Today is a special episode because I'm here in Amsterdam at the IBFD headquarters, and I'm together here with Nouel, and we will have a conversation today around the importance but also the technicalities and the pains around tax research. Before we dive into it, Luis, I want to briefly highlight your background and let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Stevie, and delighted to have you here at IBFD. You know, this is your home. Well, my name is, as Stevie mentioned, is Luis Nouel. Just call me Luis. I'm a tax lawyer by trade. I have roughly 33 years of experience dealing with taxation. I've been in tax authorities. I've been in advisory for many years in 2 continents. And in IBFD, I already been more than 18 years. So I know a little bit, one thing or two about tax research. Currently in IBFD, I lead the Latin American team, the transfer pricing team, and the VAT team. So the good thing with me is that I can wear different hats for different stakeholders. So
fantastic. Let's dive into it. So we are going to have a conversation around tax research. It's one of the things that we as tax people, we all love. I have a background in advisory, so in the Big Four, and then I moved in-house. And I can tell I've done so much tax research, and it was one of the reasons I think why I ended up in tax in the first place. Because you go to uni, it's a fairly technical education, it's a long shot, and you want to put your smart tax brains to work. But tell us a bit like, why do you love it? Do you love it in the first place, and why?
Absolutely. Why do you like chocolate ice cream? It's something that, one day being a lawyer, I stumped into tax law, and it was, immediately it got me in. So here it gets you or it doesn't get you. And if you're working in tax, even whether you love it, but you still need to engage into tax research because, our profession is so technically demanding, and is so dynamic and so broad. It's not just corporate, it's corporate, but transfer pricing. You have VAT, you have customs, you have high net worth individuals, you have individual taxation. It's so broad and is so ever changing every day that you really need to be on top of things.
Yes.
If you want to be successful, of course.
Yeah, and that is, I like that you already point out all of those different domains we have. If you do tax research, it's rarely that it is isolated on one specific topic. Obviously, you want to go deep, more, for example, in TP, but before you need to connect the dots with VAT or indirect tax. There is then obviously, the facts, the business for which you are working, where you want to apply the research to, the outcome of the research. And it's about connecting dots. It's about making sure that you look at it from different angles.
Absolutely.
And I think also what I like, and I'm curious to hear what it's resonating for you as well, in tax it's never binary, it's always gray, right? So it's never black or white, it's a matter of taking a position which we feel comfortable with to sustain during a tax audit when it comes up by the tax inspector. What's your view on that?
Absolutely. You always need to be prepared. You need to be prepared in advance. And in tax, we tend to specialize, and people tend to focus, I just want to do international, or I just want to do treaties, or I feel like doing this because this is the thing that ticks you. But rarely in practice you can just, that limited scope is not enough. If you're dealing with a tax structure and you're looking at corporate income tax, it will have an impact on VAT, and definitely will have an impact on transfer pricing. It might even have an impact on domestic individual taxation, because you have to pay executives and so on, customs. So it's rarely something that you always need to be, you need to always have information at your disposal. That's the important thing. And it's what I tell when I'm able sometimes to teach. I tell always my students, you don't need to memorize and learn everything by heart. You need to know where the information is. That's the real important thing. And the other part that you mentioned that is so important is the thing of it's not a binary system. It's always very gray. And I remember a client that I used to have many years ago. He used to say, Luis, I would like to have a tax lawyer with one hand. And it was a reference because I used to put in all my memos, in one hand you have to do this, but in the other hand.
Yeah.
So, it's.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, so I think we all agree that this is a bit the nerdy side of our profession, but we love it. That's why we have become tax professionals in the first place. Let's look a bit at how tax research currently is being done. How does it look like? What is your experience? So say that you get a technical question you need to work on. What are the different steps you take in that exercise?
Well, it's normally what I do is first I take a couple of steps back to see the big picture. Because if you get tunnel vision, you're gonna miss something.
Yeah.
The problem here is twofold. Timing is of an essence always. There is always a deadline, and the other part is, that. How to tackle the issue, because I don't know. I mean, I was talking. It happens to me every now and then that I get a call from an acquaintance, someone that I know, and say, "Look, I have a problem with this topic. Can you help me with that? I've been trying to find the information in your platform, but I cannot find it." So the issue is that the resources that are available nowadays, they are so broad, they're so ample, that it is very difficult to try to cover everything, with the tools that we had until now. If we look into actually our TRP, there is so much content into it that is very difficult to get lost sometimes. Now, sometimes the information, as you say, is not a binary. You have to do the connecting dots, and that's where the tax brain of the person has to, be on top of things. So, sometimes, the last one, it was a person that asked me something about the application of the multilateral instrument. And the question in place was, what happens when the MLI applies to a particular treaty? It will remove the whole section, or it will redraft only the part that conflicts with the MLI. And, the issue is that some countries, when they provide their consolidated versions of the treaty, the synthetic versions, they just redraft the whole thing according to MLI, and some others, they will just draft a little bit. And that is of a big consequence.
Yeah. So let's take an example. There is, for example, a parent entity in, say, Spain, and it has a subsidiary in Venezuela.
Great.
And the subsidiary needs to be liquidated. And they come to you, okay, what are the tax implications of this transaction, this activity that we are envisaging as a multinational, say? What are the steps you take? What are the typical resources, the typical, look, for example, starting with legislation and case law, what are the steps you take in such a research exercise and the sources?
Yeah, first is the issue is that you will have consequences not only in one country, you will have consequences potentially in more than one country, or even two or more countries, depending on the whole structure. You have to look at the domestic consequences of the liquidation. It is going to be treated as a dividend distribution. It's going to be treated as something else if there is any exit taxation. And, how this is going to be treated by the parent entity. So this is where I will probably start, mapping mentally.
Yeah.
What's the immediate consequences in the two different jurisdictions. And then I will go into the detail of the transaction. And, based on the detail, well, I probably will need to look if there is any specific issue in domestic legislation. I don't know if there is any court decision to complement the advice or to the client. So that's how I will probably start.
Yeah. So you already referred to domestic legislation, the treaties, potential case law. Maybe there is even like preparatory legislative works or whatever that you want to consult. There is maybe doctrine.
Oh, absolutely.
Journals that you know that are relevant from an international taxation perspective, right? And then
if we have to go to the IBFD platform, for instance, I mean, we have the Bulletin of International Taxation that most likely will have, or it could have journal articles on it. We have country chapters specific for, God knows, more than 170 jurisdictions. That will be my first contact. I will probably, instead of going into the domestic legislation, because if you go directly into your domestic legislation is, in this case, in Latin America, do you speak Spanish? Do you speak tax technical Spanish? So that's the issue. Here is easier because I'm a Spanish-speaking person and I can, Spain and Venezuela, that's easy. But what about if it's Russia and France?
And how would a typical tax person do that? So if I go back to my in-house days, I would start with maybe desktop research, the internet. We already referred to IBFD Tax Research Platform. But I would also go maybe into, sometimes multinationals, they have a mini library themselves of tax books and journals. But even go to actual libraries, like I used to go to there was a university close where I live, and they had a very big tax library. So they also do a deep dive sometimes into the hard copy books. What's your experience there like?
I think nowadays is very difficult. I mean, we have even our own library, and I use it all the time. But the thing when you're looking for country-specific information, as I was telling you, the whole tax environment is so dynamic, and things are changing so fast. Just imagine how it will take you to finish a book. The process, it will take a long time, and in this long time, imagine how many things could have changed. Change could have been, rates could have changed. You could have court decisions. You could have different changes of opinion in tax authorities. So it's many things that can change. And that's the reason why what we produce here in IBFD is so important and so unique compared with other sources. There is a lot of free sources on the internet on taxes, but the issue is that information up to date? And then the second question is, are you willing to take the risk on that? So that's why we are strong in tax content, and that's the reason why we are respected all over the world, is because we are on top. We produce news every day. All these news are connected with our country chapters, with our own information. So we try to keep the information as updated as possible, because especially nowadays, things change really, really fast.
100%. So we explained a bit like, okay, why do we love tax research in general? We explained what does it look like, but we're now evolving into like the problems. And you said like, okay, it's hard to know whether, first of all, to find the data you need, but then also more importantly, is it up to date, the information I'm looking at? And I hear you there, because that is obviously one of the things we as tax people need to be sure about. It's actually all about the details. Eh? The saying is, the devil is in the detail, but tax is all about the details. So we cannot make those mistakes. you then refer to the tax research platform as where everything comes together. Is it also because there is then a lot of context around, for example, a paragraph of legislation, which is then surrounded by context to help you understand it as a tax professional? Because that is one of the things that I always struggled with. If you read a paragraph of legislation, and I do, then we might have, or the chances are high that we have a slightly different interpretation of it.
Oh, absolutely. And even worse than that, you might have a understanding that this applies like this, but there might be other rules within the domestic law that will have an impact on that little paragraph of legislation.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why I just don't go directly into legislation in the first place. I want to have that context. I want to go to the country chapters, because then there is a storytelling about the whole system. And you have anchor points where you see, but also look at this part of the chapter, or look at this other publication.
Yes.
And it takes you there to give you that context, to give you that broader perspective. And then if I really need to fine tune and know about the little nitty gritty detail on how something applies, I might go to the legislation.
Yeah. And then if you look at the other problems, so it's the technicality of the tax system, and it's getting worse, I guess. So the rules are not getting easier, they are getting more complex. I also think we live in a world where, with digital economies being on full swing, the tax rules are most of the time still made for the traditional economies, and now we see business models constantly changing, and there is no real answer in the tax legislation yet for it, right? So that makes it even more complex. What about, you mentioned time. You always raise against the time. You have deadlines. I guess most tax professionals, despite the fact that they love doing research, they don't have enough time for it. So what is your experience about budgets in general, having the budget for it? Do you hear that regularly if you talk to peers, that they are maybe under pressure there and they don't get the resources they need? Maybe they want to have an IBFD subscription or a subscription to one or the other journal, but they don't get it?
Absolutely. We live in a far from a perfect world, and we all have, caveats. We all have limits. And, this is something that I see with our clients on a regular basis. They want to have the information as fast as possible, especially in the corporate environment, but also for advisory. Because, time is money in our business. And, when you're at the university, it's a different story, because, in academia, you have the time to spend. But even there, you want to finish as soon as possible. But in business, oh my God, it's really important. And nowadays, the tax departments, the budgets of the tax departments are getting smaller, and they're facing more compliance and more compliance and more compliance, and really more complexity. And bad news is that this is not going to stop. I was in a conversation some time ago and talking about the complexity of the tax world. A few years ago, every time that there was a new OECD model, we were complaining, oh my God, this is the end of the world. This is too complex. How we're going to be dealing with that? Then we have the MLI. Oh my God, this is extremely complex, and blah, blah. And then the other problem, it doesn't seem to be a big one. And then now we have Pillar Two. Oh my God, we're going to die. It's extremely complex. Now the MLI doesn't look that bad. And I guarantee you that in a few years, we're going to have something else that is going to be even more complex. So Pillar 2 is not going to look that challenging.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree the next big thing will happen. We don't know what it will be, Pillar 3, Pillar 4, whatever it is.
We don't know.
But it can also be a new DAC, I don't know, 10, a new ATAT. There is so much on the table that can pop up. What is your view about controversy and the extra pressure that is bringing to the table? Because we know the tax authorities, they are stepping up their game.
Absolutely.
They have better trained tax inspectors. They have a data advantage because they have a lot of data. They apply next generation technologies. What do you typically hear about that, and how is this inflating the problem?
It's a big problem nowadays. And the issue is that, first, as looking at it from a multinational perspective, you want to have your tax position in control. You want to have certainty. I think that's the big word here.
But you cannot get certainty. That's the problem. It's like close to certain, but
exactly, because the issue is that on the other side, tax authorities, they have pressure from governments. They say we need more money because we need to spend more. And as you mentioned, tax authorities are really stepping up into looking at the numbers, looking at the tax positions of multinationals, because they're the low-hanging fruits for them.
Yeah.
And as you correctly mentioned, there has been using technology already for quite some time. I mean, AI, I don't want to talk much about AI, but AI has been already in the hands of tax authorities at least for 8-9 years. And they're being using a lot of data. They have access to a lot of data, and they have a very good processing power of data. That also will reflect also on more auditing, a lot of more of activity. And well, it's every position has 2-3 different point of views, and the likelihood of having a compliance or a conflict are quite big. So dispute resolution is one of the biggest things now. And this is important for multinationals, especially, to be on top of their game and to make sure that their tax positions are safe and defendable in as much as possible.
And that is another problem that I remember when I was in-house. So you do your tax technical research, but then you need to paper it up, because we know that maybe 3 or 5 years down the road, we have done tax research, we took a specific position, we reported it in one or the other return, tax reporting, but then 3-5 years down the road, question comes up. It can be about a small number or a big number, but somewhere hidden in a big data set, and you will need to explain what happened there. And if you then didn't paper it up properly, maybe your predecessor is gone already. Maybe the business unit, you acquired that business unit, and this is a legacy position that maybe there is always a reason why it is hard to then remember what happened. And that is what the point I want to make here. When I was in-house, I would often suddenly wake up in the middle of the night thinking like, oh my God, did I paper it up properly? Like, is it well enough documented in the memo? Obviously, you have advisors that help you with it. But in the end, it's your responsibility to make sure that 3 years down the road, we can expect the nasty question from the tax authorities. We need to be ready.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I've kept seeing in multinationals, not everyone is the same, of course, but is that there is not enough preparedness or documentation preparedness in terms of being proactive in setting a defense for you. Don't wait until the problem is here. Just build your defense before there is an offense.
But what is the problem? We don't have the time, right?
Exactly.
So we would love to paper it up, but we don't have the time, because we did the research, we implemented something, and then before we know, we have 100 other files waiting on our desk.
And you have God knows how many other priorities flying on your desk. And then how I'm going to have time and how I'm going to prepare for this. So it's, sometimes I have friends in the industry, I say, I feel like an octopus. I'm doing too many things at the same time. And I think that's a reason new technologies are so interesting for multinationals.
And that indeed brings us to the elephant in the room, which you didn't want to talk about too much, which is AI, obviously. But I think we all agree, everybody is trying it out these days. Everybody is using it. if you would have asked like 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, people would have said like, man, the outcome is not really good, the quality is not good. But if you use it these days, if you apply it on the right data sources,
Yep.
if you install the right guardrails, if you train it up as an actual tax professional and how it should behave, I think we all agree that the outcomes look much better today. And I think there we have a very unique opportunity as tax professionals, whether we are in-house or in advisory, all of us, to start using it, to start trying it out. Because to your point, and I love that you mentioned it, the tax authorities are already doing it for multiple years.
Oh, yeah.
And that flies under the radar, right? We don't know that,
Oh, yeah.
but it's happening. I saw an OECD paper, OECD Tax Administration 3.0 paper, where I think indeed they said like large majority is doing, I don't recall the exact number, but I think 70% of the tax authorities are applying it.
Yeah. And you will be surprised, that you think even from Latin America, you say, well, it's Latin America. No, they're been using it for years and quite successfully. So, I think that, and I didn't want to talk much about AI, but, we have to. I'm a firm believer that technology is going to help us quite a bit. And when I say us, I'm being quite ample. I'm saying authorities, I'm saying multinationals, I'm saying advisory, I'm saying academia. So this is something that is not just targeted at something, but AI can have a massive impact in the way that we do business, especially how AI can manage to deal with data.
Exactly.
Way much better than any person can do. And that's the strongest point. And I think that that's where AI is going to shine. A lot of people will say, oh my God, AI is going to kill my job. I don't think so. It's an issue of, new technology coming, and, what's going to happen is that functions may change, may adapt, but they're not going to be replaced.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important, especially the work that you guys are doing. I think is fantastic, and well, it's an evolution as well. So
yeah, it's like, and obviously it was a bit before my time, but first there was then the PC, the personal computer that arrived, and then there was the internet, and every time there was a bit of anxiety, but it's in the end just reshaping the profession. Yeah. I like your point about the power of AI and how it deals with big data sets we need to deal with. It's about knowledge, tax knowledge, which AI has shown also in the engineering domain that it can deal with very well. The data part, where in the end, we as humans, we won't be replaced. I fully agree. It's all about making sure that we redefine our roles, but the judgment in the end, because it is not binary, will be a human.
Yeah.
The relationship with the tax authorities telling the story will be a human. Yeah. In the end, it's also us humans that will support the business.
Yeah.
Maybe in, 10 years down the road, don't quote me on it, things will continue to evolve, but I'm pretty confident that it's just a fact of how our profession is being reshaped. And I think in the end, we at Loctax, we are building a very exciting AI assistant with access to the full IBFD library. We have a partnership for years already with IBFD. Yep. I'm 100% convinced and a big fan of the data, how comprehensive it is. You mentioned it's global. It's, I think, 220 countries.
It's massive, yeah.
It's also not only corporate or direct tax, but it is indirect tax. You have everything, TP, Pillar Two, you name it, in it there. It's legislation, it's treaties, it's doctrine, it's journals, it's case law. Yeah. And that, I think, is where the true opportunity lies, where I hope that in the future, we can do more of the things we actually love, which is a tax research, because we can do it in a much more efficient way.
Absolutely. And one thing that for us is very important is to be extremely accurate. we have internally several processes to ensure that the information is curated in as much as possible. And sometimes, we have such a coverage that sometimes I'm impressed that even we are managing to produce content from places that they're in conflict, for instance. So,
Yeah.
and we still manage to get information and provide information on those places. So it's something that is important. And for our clients, one thing that, there is a lot of companies providing content on the big countries, but when you really need, information about a not so on the spot country, then that's where people say, "Oh my God, how do you get that information?" And it's up to date. So that's really important.
I like that a lot because the country closest to home for us, we know the rules, right?
Yeah.
We know
It's
most
easier
of the.
to get information.
But if I get a question about APAC or LATAM, that's when it becomes really
or
tricky.
Middle East, or Africa, or some place in Asia Pacific.
100%. Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's a lot of work, but that's why we're doing this. I mean, we're as a foundation, our objective is the spread of tax knowledge, and we have to do it as efficiently and proper as possible. And time and quality also for us is there are factors. And if we can make our information available through other channels that are extremely efficient, that's also a goal for us.
Let's go then on a joint mission where we keep on spreading not only the tax knowledge, but maybe also more tax research
Absolutely.
to advisors so that they can better support their clients, to in-house teams that they can better support the business, which in the end is their ultimate mission, and make sure that their companies are successful.
Yeah.
Maybe to tax authorities. I mean, we will see, but let's go for it. So let's spread the tax love in general.
And it's one thing that I wanted to tell people as well is don't be afraid of it. The sooner you embrace the new technologies, the better you're going to get handling them. So I think this is quite important. So,
all right, Luis, thanks a lot for the conversation.
Thanks very much for the visit and for the interview. And
it was a trip down memory lane for me back going to tax research, and I still miss it a lot. So let's hope that we can have more tax research for all of the tax professionals very soon.
Hopefully, yes.
Thanks, Luis.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for everyone tuning in.
Thank you.